A group of women from Syria were living at the Piraeus port with conditions that they describe as not being human. They were living on the street in little tents. No access to water, no access to food, no place to cook or prepare food, no means to buy any food, no possibility of moving, lack of means to communicate. These women have no information about their situation, what was happening to them in Europe, how can they apply for asylum, how can they access international protection. They had no idea. They had come to Europe waiting for international protection, and what they got was no protection, no shelter, no rights, but a tent in a parking lot, and the European institutions with no responsibility for it. There was at least 3 women that were pregnant. When we asked them if they had had services, medical attention, they told us, yes, we have this document. And this document allows us to have once a week raisins or tuna to be delivered to us when they bring food. They couldn't access any medical assistance. No exams of any kind were provided for them. No vitamins, no any kind of control, nothing. They had no idea of how they were going to do, for example, when they had to deliver the baby. These women were trapped at the Piraeus port because the asylum services in Greece, after the European-Turkey agreement collapsed. Greece was never a country in which many people asked for asylum. And when people started coming to Europe in this crisis, because they were entering Greece, within Greece they didn't apply for asylum. They wanted to move and to continue their journey to some other countries in Europe. What happened is that after this agreement, all of the rest of the European countries closed up their frontiers, their borders, and this forced Greece to have all the people that were coming, that were trying to get to other countries within Europe, were forced to stay in Greece. And they were forced to apply to asylum there. And the asylum service collapsed. They were asking us what they could do. And us, as lawyers, we had a pretty clear perspective of international protection. We knew that by law, they could apply to asylum. And the asylum procedure will allow their cases to be examined one by one and to provide them with this international protection, including accommodation, information about their cases, legal assistance, medical assistance, psychosocial assistance, and means to continue with their lives. That's what the law says. That's what the Convention for Refugees states for all European countries. The real problem is that they couldn't even access to them. The situation in Greece was so complicated that the Hellenic Asylum Office wasn't even taking applications. So what they were told is that they had to call a specific number through Skype to make an appointment to ask for asylum. So we said, have you guys called? And they said, we have been calling every single day for 5 months. When we started doing researches about this Skype call, we discovered that because they were Syrian women, they could only call 2 times a week in a specific hour. That meant, for example, their calls will only be answered on Monday and Tuesday from 11 to 12 p.m. That was the only time that they could accept their calls to ask for a date to start the asylum application. So that meant that this woman had no possibility of accessing the asylum procedure. And that meant that this woman had no protection of the state, of the European Union whatsoever. That meant that these women were there to live, to die, to whatever they could do with their lives. For us, as lawyers, that means that the people who are responsible for complying with the law are not fulfilling their duties. If hundreds and thousands of women in Europe come seeking for international protection, and what they find is abandonment, poverty, risk of their lives, and no dignity, that only means that responsibles of the European Union are not fulfilling their responsibilities. The first decision that the European Union made when they started calling this humanitarian crisis a refugee crisis is that they access to it with a migratory policy and not a protections policy. And what they did is a statement between Turkey and the European Union claiming that Turkey is a safe country. So people that were coming were in a position to be moved back out of the European Union to Turkey. When they decided this, they didn't study, they didn't do an impact assessment of how this decision, this migratory decision, was going to affect the rights of women, girls, and children. They didn't take into account that these lives that were already in risk and that came to the European Union seeking for international protections were going to be in high risk. So we decided to place this claim before the Ombudswoman for the European Union to investigate or to ask the European Commission why they didn't do this human rights assessment. Why didn't they study the impact that this particular agreement or statement was going to cause in the life of women, girls, and children? That claim was accepted, and it's already the Ombudswoman has already started to investigate and to try to find out what happened if, as we claim, there has been maladministration of the European authorities concerning this humanitarian crisis. This maladministration has a huge impact in the life of women, girls, and children. And we believe that the European Union has high responsibilities to fulfill. What we do is we use the power of law. So we needed to do something about it. But we discovered that one action wasn't going to be enough. So we started what we call multi-plan action for this situation, for this project that we are embarking on. We launched a report called Refugee Women Trapped in Europe, Where's Dignity? We found these women trapped, and we launched this report as the first step in many other steps that we would like to take and we hope to take. The other action that we took is the claim before the Ombudswoman Office for the European Union. That is an ongoing investigation. The Ombudswoman has accepted our claim and started her investigation. She's going to ask the European institutions and ourselves with information. And she has to determine whether there has been maladministration of the European Commission for not taking into account a human right and a gender perspective in their decisions. By the end of her investigation, she has to give a resolution of whether the European Commission has acted correctly within their responsibilities or not. We will also like to take some other legal steps. First, to hold or to find out who's responsible in this humanitarian crisis, and also through legal work to show the reality of these women. We believe that the law, the legal work, can give us tools to discuss, to put into social discussion some realities that are not being discussed. We understand, for what we have seen, that a lot of people, a lot of volunteers, a lot of organizations, a lot of individuals are working hard to change this harsh reality. A lot of people, a lot of women are working hard within their possibilities so these other women stop suffering their human rights violations. We hope to keep on doing our part. But I would like to remember everyone that in the history of humanity, war has always happened, and different countries have had to escape from war and to go and knock some other countries and ask for help. This is not something new. As humanity, we have dealt with it for a long time. What it is new and what we've been working on and celebrating for long now is that human rights, the human dignity, has been placed as the center of all the structures built within law. That means that when the European Union was created, the center of this, what they were trying to protect with this organization, these structures, these states getting into a common vision, was to protect the human beings. So this has not changed until today. The problem is that the authorities are not acting upon it, and this has to change. I hope it changes with the commitment of all of us and the work of all of us. And I hope that we can manage to tell the authorities that their decisions within this humanitarian crisis do not represent us.